Welcome to Disc Golf for Everyone. I'm your host, Jay, and in today's video, I'm going to offer up 4 categories to apply to your practicing, particularly for novices and beginners, to help up the ROI of your practice, that is, the return on your invested time, so that you can improve your game most effectively. And I'm going to give one big tip that I think makes a huge difference based on these categories. Now, my impression is that most beginners focus in on putting and what I'll call raw distance in their practice. That is, if they have a chance to practice outside of playing around disc golf, they're going to be at a basket, practicing their putt, or they're going to be in a field throwing it as far as they can and working on that distance, trying to push the disc further out. But when I think about my own practice and how to improve most rapidly, I break it down into 4 categories. And I believe these 4 categories have a natural ranking to them or emphasis. They're all important. I think that emphasis that some should be emphasized more should inform how you go about practicing, the methods you use to practice. And it probably will come as a surprise to most of you, and maybe I'm wrong, hit me in the comments if you think so, that I actually think raw distance is one of the least important aspects of practicing. So again, raw distance is still important, but I think it's the least important of the 4 aspects of practice that I use. So I believe distance is absolutely important, because it is, but shouldn't be practiced at the expense of the other categories. Does that make sense? So what are my 4 categories? I call it PADD, P-A-D-D. That's putting, accuracy, diversity, and distance. And that's it. That's how I think about it. So let me break it down a little more for you. First off, putting. Putting actually involves the other 3, right? Putting involves accuracy and diversity of shots when you're putting to get around obstacles, and distance, getting the right distance. However, I treat it as a separate category because it's a very different phase of the game. It can be practiced independently, and it is its own thing in many ways. And to be clear, when I say putting, I don't mean driving with a putter. I mean actually putting, throwing the disc into the basket. Now that implies when I say accuracy, diversity, and distance, I'm talking about the other phases of the game, approach shots and drives. And that brings us to my second clarification. So the first clarification is why I have putting as a separate category. Second clarification is when the basket is easily in your range, you can easily throw that far, then I really factor in distance as more a part of accuracy. Getting the right distance is in fact a component of accuracy. Now when you're driving, if the basket is well beyond your range or somewhat beyond your range, then distance means getting as far toward the basket as possible on a good line. That certainly involves accuracy, but in general, the emphasis is on getting the disc down the fairway on whatever line is required by the course. Once the basket is actually in your range, distance implies getting the distance correct, not throwing too short, not throwing too far. So when the basket's in your range, how far you can throw, I think of that in terms of accuracy. When it's not in your range or it's on that edge, I think about distance as being very important. And I think about distance also as being the ability in practice to expand how far out you can go with accuracy. So they feed off each other a bit. There's a dynamic there. And you'll have some throws, say my forehand, for instance, I cannot throw as far as my backhand. So when we talk about distance, the type of throw that's required factors into whether I'm practicing for distance or accuracy. Let's move on to a third clarification, diversity. What do I mean by that? I'm referring to being able to throw a disc very well in many different ways. Backhands, forehands, hyzer lines, turnover shots, low ceiling, good skips, throwing uphill versus downhill, throwing with a headwind versus with a tailwind. All of that adds up to shot diversity, that you can throw the disc in a bunch of different ways. In other words, the ability to get the disc to a specific place in a variety of lines, in a variety of ways, in a variety of conditions. That's diversity, and I think it will make a tremendous difference in your game, and I'm sure you probably already know that. Are there holes in your home course where you think, man, that would be perfect for a lefty? Don't. Think, I need to work on my forehand, or I need to work on a late breaking turnover shot that'll go to the ground before it fades back. Okay, one more clarification, the 4th one. And that is, I'm missing the most important category of practice, form. Your form will largely determine your accuracy and distance. So when you're practicing for accuracy and distance, you're really practicing your form and vice versa. So why don't I call out form as one of my 4 categories in the PADD, P-A-D-D? Why isn't it P-A-D-D-F or just PF, putting and form. The first reason I don't call out form is there's a lot of great videos online. You can go watch, look them up on YouTube or wherever, and you'll find wonderful sources of information on having a very good form, driving, forehands, backhands, whatever. Due to some physical limitations of my own, I don't have the best form. My form is sort of one giant compromised work in progress. But I also believe focusing on the outcome, the goal, such as accuracy, shot diversity, and distance, and not just the means, form, can be really helpful in thinking through how to practice well. And thinking about how to make your practice more effective, higher ROI on your time, is what Disc Golf for Everyone is all about. Okay, on to my big tip. If you've bought into this whole PADD approach, putting accuracy, diversity, and distance, then the big thing that will help you do your practicing better, particularly the non-putting, the approaches and drives with accuracy, shot diversity, and distance, the tip I have for you in a single word is cones. These guys are amazing to get you better and more effective in your practice with disc golf. When I have a chance to practice drives and approaches in a field, I almost always have a set of cones with me. And I think these cones are critical to the success I've had in improving my game as rapidly as possible, given what time I have to practice. I'll choose one or two distances for a given set of shots, maybe let's say 200 feet and 300 feet. And I'll put out a cone where I'm starting, I'll put out a cone at the further distance and the further yet, and then I will throw not merely for distance, but I'll throw with a variety of discs, with a variety of shots at the actual cones. I'm trying to bring in to my practice, even when I'm trying to extend my distance, I'm trying to keep in mind always accuracy, and I'm trying to achieve those distances with different types of throws. So I'll put the cones out, and then I'll throw a bunch of shots with different lines, mixing in backhands and even forehands if that cone is within my range. It's not as long as my backhand. And when I'm done, I'll go out and collect the discs that I was throwing at the cones, and I'll put them right next to the cone, and I'll throw right back at my starting cone. And the idea there is, if the wind is a side wind, I want to practice all these throws with the wind coming from both sides. If it's a tailwind or headwind, I want to again throw, experiencing both those wind directions in my throws. So I put out the cones, and I start on one cone, and I throw a bunch of ways to the other cone, get all this at this cone, and throw right back. And it really maximizes the impact of my practice. To be honest, I have been shocked at how effective that one simple thing, just using a target, not just throwing and seeing if it went far, but throwing at something with discipline, with consistency. It's amazing the difference it makes. Now, sometimes I am truly just going for full distance. Like, can I throw further than I used to throw? And I don't know how far that is. I still use the cones. I will set them up in a line. So let's say I'm starting here, and I'm trying to throw as far as possible this direction. I'm still looking to see that when the disc lands, that it's generally on the line that I've set the cones out. So if this cone is where I'm throwing from, this one's 300 feet out. And let's say I recently set my new record, I threw 370 feet. And it was generally on a line with these cones when it landed. It kind of S-ed out and curved over and went back and landed about on the line I was trying to achieve. So even for raw distance, I still try to use the cones to always have accuracy in mind. Raw distance in the wrong direction does not help you get better. I think using cones in this PADD approach to practice, putting accuracy, diversity, and distance, has been a huge help to me. In my first 6 months of playing, I got from about, say, a 20 over per round to where I actually threw a few times under par. Now, I'm not averaging under par. Even now, a few months later, I've played for about 8 or 9 months so far. I average about 2 over par on what I'll call amateur-friendly courses, but I'm making real headway with what practice time I have. So I'm thrilled with the progress I've been able to make with this general approach, and I hope it helps you too to think about how to make your practice more effectively. If you go out in a field, I want you to feel like that time spent throwing plastic makes a real impact on your game. So that's all for this video. If you'd like to support Disc Golf for Everyone, you've got some great options. First off, hit subscribe. Second, drop a comment below. Give me your thoughts, let me know. Help me spread the word about the channel. Third, you can buy one of these awesome disc golf t-shirts that I designed. They look great. I get great comments on them when I'm out wearing it. I think it'll look great on YouTube, probably. Yeah, it will. Now let's go grow the sport together.